Hey everyone, Craig Ripley here. Welcome to another edition of Living Off the Slab. And today I am joined by my lovely wife,
Cathy Ripley Green.
Yeah, yes.
Well, maybe we should talk about that for a minute because you're
ahead.
Craig Ripley and I'm Cathy Ripley Green. I don't know if many of your viewers know that we had a chiropractic wellness center together and we called it Ripley Green Wellness. And after Craig decided to move into other pastures, so to speak, people started to think that my name was Ripley Green, like my first name. So then I thought, oh, this is way too confusing. I'm going to keep the business name the same, and I'm just going to introduce myself as Cathy Ripley Green. And so there it is.
So now everybody thinks that I'm Craig Green.
Occasionally that happens, but
Anyway, that's all off topic. So what we want to talk about today is something that one of the viewers asked about. I had a very good question, I thought, and that's why I brought Cathy on, because he and his wife want to take their first cross-country trip this year, and his wife doesn't have a lot of experience on riding pillion. So he was looking for some tips, some hints on how to keep her comfortable and keep her enjoying the trip. Again, being that this is her first time doing so. So we've learned a lot over the years, so I thought that we would maybe share some of those things with you. Right, so Cathy, you remember when I brought this topic up to you?
yeah.
I said, why don't you give me some things that you think help you be comfortable out there while we're traveling. So what was the first thing that you came up with?
I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I said buy a comfortable bike. That means your person that is riding double up with you, two up, has to go bike shopping with you and sit on the bike with you and take a test ride with you. Buy a comfortable bike.
And yeah, that is extremely important. And it depends upon the size that you are, right? Cathy and I, as you can tell, are
larger.
Yes, we're larger people, at least width-wise, not necessarily height-wise. So we need something with a little wider saddles on there. Also, it is extremely important. I agree with her. Take your wife out shopping if you're looking for a new bike and make sure that she is happy with what you are purchasing. We went through this process when we were getting our current touring bike, which is a BMW K1600. I actually wanted to get a BMW R1200 RT, which is a little bit smaller bike, but once we were in the showroom, it was a no-go with her. She points over to the big bike with a comfy seat and the backrest and says, why can't we get that one?
That's right. But it wasn't that I was totally opposed to the other bike. It's that we would have had to purchase for a lot of extra money the trunk.
The trunk,
right? To create
didn't come with a trunk.
Yeah. So this was a lot more comfortable. And honestly speaking, even when we bought the Vision the first time, we went together. We sat on the bike literally for I don't even know, it was 15 or 20 minutes in the showroom, and then we took it out for a spin. And that bike was a dream, for the passenger. Absolutely dream. Because of the trunk, but we'll get to that, right?
Well, I think, why don't you go ahead and tell the viewers here, what do you think makes a comfortable bike for the passenger?
So the first thing is that you have to feel safe because, as everybody knows, the person sitting behind the rider is raised up. And so when you're raised up a little bit, I think the actual driver of the bike has no concept of that because
unless you've been back there yourself.
Right. And have you ever even ridden passenger?
Yeah, but not on this bike though.
No. But like not even much, right?
No, not much.
Right. So the rider doesn't really have the concept what the passenger is going through. So for me, what was also necessary is when you have that trunk there and you can lean back on it, but it almost kind of comes up around your sides a little bit, you feel more secure. I do, at least. And honestly speaking, to be able to lean back, sometimes I see women on the back of a bike and I'm thinking, how are they comfortable? There's nothing to lean back on. There's nothing for them to kind of hold on to. And I just don't understand it. Most of the times they are a lot younger than I am.
I think that is key.
Yeah.
Younger and, sometimes you'll see, a girl that weighs 105, 110 pounds,
Yeah,
on
different
the back
story.
of a bike, right?
Right.
Can fit on a smaller saddle.
Right, but also even when we were younger, so even like 10, 13, I don't know, how long have you been riding, 15 years ago?
We've been riding together now 16 years.
So even back then, when we were riding, there would be some of the women in our group that would be riding on the back, and I'd be thinking, how would they possibly
Yeah.
comfortable? So for me, it's key to have the trunk there to lean back on, and it's also gives you a sense of security and being able to just like relax, back there is just so important because we travel far and wide. Now, if we were just going out for an ice cream, okay, oh yeah, that first bike we had.
Right. Well, yeah, this is where we came from is when I originally returned back to motorcycling about 2006. I got a Kawasaki Vulcan 900 touring cruiser. And I did some things to it to try to make it more comfortable to Cathy. And you could do those things to your current bike as well. And that is, we got a saddle. I went out and got a Mustang saddle for it, which is a really nice saddle. And it did make it more comfortable, but still that pillion seat was, yay wide. So she couldn't ride for more than an hour and a half on that bike, which is what precipitated us to move towards getting the Victory Vision, and then, of course, the bike that we have now.
Right. So far, my tips are bring your passenger with you. Now, if you're getting a bike and you're going to bring your daughter along for some rides or your son, I don't really think it's going to be an issue because they're not going to probably be, unless we did meet that one gentleman who rode with his daughter all the time. They're just smaller, they're younger, they're more comfortable, they're more flexible, Get the bike that's comfortable, go with your passenger, get something that you can lean back on, and even talking about the seat, at one point you can get like a little air bladder or whatever to make it more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, when we start talking about getting a comfortable bike and stuff, and some of the bikes that we've had, we've spent a good amount of money on these bikes, right? They're $20,000+ motorcycles. So I'm not suggesting, I don't think Cathy would be either, that you go out and spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a new motorcycle unless you just absolutely want to. There are ways that you can take your current bike and try to make it more comfortable, which is, again, buying a new saddle. Mustang, if you have a cruiser, Harley Davidson, Victory or an Indian, they usually make saddles for those kinds of bikes, but you can have your saddle custom fit by a local upholsterer. I did that for one of my bikes. There is Rocky Meyer saddles, there's Russell Daylong out there, Corbin saddles. There's a lot of good manufacturers that you can go to get your seat custom made, more comfortable for your pillion. So,
and you know what? There's also do-it-yourself stuff because you can bring a little squish pillow. You can get one of these air bladder things that I had when I was riding my own bike. You can figure some stuff out that's very low cost with some foam or whatnot. But comfort.
Another thing that I think that's been really important to her, because I know when we went out and bought this new bike, it was important, and that is the foot rest.
Yeah, the footrest. Yeah, absolutely.
On the Vision, we had a nice platform for her, and that made her really comfortable. So she was concerned that the footrests are a little bit narrower on this bike. I think you've been comfortable
Absolutely.
with them so far.
And like when we went to look at the bike, I wasn't looking at it so much as this bike doesn't have this and that, but I couldn't help compare it to the Victory Vision because I personally adore that bike. I loved riding on that bike. But we rode just a few times and I'm like, honey, these foot pegs are fine. They're absolutely fine.
Right. So if your bike has, really narrow foot pegs for the passenger, well, then look and see if you can upgrade those, because that really goes a long way to making them more comfortable, more stable back there. Another thing is changing the height of those foot pegs. Some women have longer legs, so they may be a little bit cramped. So if you can lower them, that would be helpful. I have a friend, both Cathy and I have a friend who he's an ingenious guy. He built a platform on his passenger foot pegs that are about 2 inches high for his wife, because his wife is short of stature, and that really helps her in being comfortable back there. Her legs aren't just dangling.
Right.
So there are things you can do for not very much money to make the bike more comfortable.
Right, that's right. And another thing that this was always something that never happened that I dreamed of, but then I really didn't need it. I wanted to add the armrests onto the Vision. And Craig was like, I don't really want the armrests on there. One of our friends that we rode with had them, and she would just sit there with her arms up, and I thought they were so cool. But
yeah, she would like them on this bike too, but I'm very resistant. I just don't like the way they look, and also it interferes with me when I'm riding the bike by myself. If I want to use the seat for put gear on or something like that. So.
Yeah, well, guess what? I would love to still have armrests, but I figured it out, because in the Vision, the way the seat was, and compared to the bike that we have now, what I do sometimes, I'll just have my hands like on my knees. Sometimes I can put them out a little bit, like stretched out, which I couldn't do in the Vision because it was too wide. But the other thing I've just figured out, a lot of times I have my gloves on, I just interlace my fingers, put them in front like this. Craig doesn't even know that I'm doing it. It's kind of be like behind his back there. And it's just super comfortable instead of the armrest, because when you're the driver of the bike, when you're, handling the bike, you're doing all kinds of stuff, but you can't sit on the bike for hours like we do when we travel, and hopefully you're doing as well. You can't sit there in one position, and so you're going to be moving your arms around a lot and such. So, and you know what? I just thought of another thing.
Okay.
If you want your partner, your wife, your friend, whoever it's going to be super comfortable there too, it's really about, as far as I'm concerned, when Craig will say to me sometimes, like, you doing okay back there? Like, how you doing? Do you need to stop? So this communication back and forth is really about being comfortable as well.
I think that brings us, it's a good segue into moving on to some other things other than the motorcycle.